So let's assume you're a project manager and you have defined the project scope. What's next? Well, what's next is you have to identify the activities required to produce your project scope. And again, the project scope is the deliverables of the project. The way you typically do this is to list out the activities. Sometimes you would do this underneath the WBS elements. And here's an example of a project to develop an order picking system, and this is out of the Larsons and Gray text. In the left-hand column, you see a label for each activity, then you see a description, and then you see preceding activities or predecessors. Predecessors just means that which comes before. A good analogy is in making coffee. You cannot pour up coffee until you've brewed it. You cannot brew coffee until you've poured water in the machine and put grounds and filter in, etc. So in this case, defined requirements in this particular project comes first, so there are no preceding activities. And then you see going forward, assign team, design hardware. Activity A is the predecessor. This means you cannot assign the team and you cannot design hardware until the requirements are done. Now that you've identified these, you need to sequence them in order. And if you see below where you have defined requirements, assign team, design hardware, here is how you sequence them in order. You're just drawing a box and you're drawing arrows to the boxes. Notice there's two arrows coming out of activity A. One goes to B, one goes to C. This is because both B and C cannot start until A starts. Okay, so that's how it works. That's why there's two arrows coming out of A, and they're both, and each arrow is going to be in C. So neither of those two activities can start until A finishes. Let's look at another example. Well, first of all, here's the completed network. If you go through the list of activities in the description and then the predecessors, you end up with this, an activity that's sequenced in order. Okay, B and C begin after A, D starts after B, E and F begins after C, G after D, and then H is the final step. So now all activities in the project are identified and all of them are sequenced in order. So this is a good start. What started with a list of activities and predecessors, now you can, at a glance, using the network diagram, can clearly see what the activities are. There's nice labels on them, and you know the logical order of events. The issue here, though, if you look at this network diagram, you'll see some activities are in sequence, one after another, whereas others are kind of in parallel. For example, D, E, and F are in parallel. For example, going back to the making coffee analogy, while the coffee's brewing, you may go get your cup, your spoon, your sugar, your cream. Those things could be done in parallel while the coffee's brewing. Okay, and so that much is clear, but what is less clear is what's the overall duration of the project. With series and parallel activities, it's difficult to see at a glance. This requires some calculation, and that's what we're going to do in the next video.